You'll have to pardon this noise in the background of this video because John is busy sanding some of the door fronts. But I'm trying to make a start to finish video about how we're refinishing our cabinets. So this is kind of in the middle of all the steps, but I wanted to explain why there was this noise in the background. Okay, so I've got putty on my knife. It's a nice flexible putty knife. And I'm putting, yes, that's my foot. I'm holding this down with my foot. I'm putting, since I'm holding the camera, putty over this hole that I want to cover. And I'm just dragging the brush pretty hard over it. You see how to get the putty off, I let it flex up. And then I drag it, drag it, drag it. So once again, that's putty brush is sort of more parallel with the door front to get the putty off. And then I stick my hand up more and I scrape it off. And once this is primed and painted, that hole should be absolutely invisible. Okay, I'm starting on the back of the doors because I have to degloss both sides of them. You can see that everything that needs to be filled has been filled, although certain things like hinge holes, which we will be reusing, have not been filled. And again, these have been sanded by John in there. That's that noise you hear in the background. So now I've got my liquid deglosser on my paper towel, and I'm just going to drag it all over these. And you'll see that it's sort of shiny. What this does is it takes off any of those nasty cooking oils. Although these have been completely sanded, not just sanded where we use the filler, but the entire door has been sanded just to rough it up. We want the most durable, long-lasting finish, so we didn't take any shortcuts. Now you can see it kind of tints my rag, which is great because it shows me all the sawdust and grease and nasty stuff it's taking off. I do this about 2 times, so I'll do this side, I'll do the edges, I'll turn it over, I'll do the back, and then I'll do it once again on each side. But it's just these extra steps, like a little bit of sanding to rough it up and some deglossing that really make sure the primer and the paint stick to these babies like glue. They almost feel like new wood. They don't feel stained or sealed anymore, so they're very accepting of the paint. So not only did we putty, sand, and degloss the doors and drawer fronts, we also did the frames. So you can see how we've sanded and deglossed. It looks kind of chalky, so it's ready for primer and paint because it's been very roughed up. And I mentioned putty. We only putted where we needed to. So for a lot of the frames we didn't. But for example, right here we had an old hinge mark. This was a cabinet we got from the Restore. So we filled that in with a piece of wood and then puttied and sanded, and you can see now it was very obvious before and had a crack, and now it looks just like, it's almost hard to pick up on the camera actually, it looks just like it was right here. It never happened. So things are ready for primer and paint, and look how crazy the pantry looks without the doors. Crazy. Okay, so I'm going to paint this cabinet. John is my handy assistant with the camera, and I just wanted to show you guys how I do it. First thing I do is get some paint on my brush, but not too much, and I do the grooves first. You want to work pretty quickly with this because you never want anything to dry or get kind of gummy. You want everything to be loose and open so you can move it around. You see crevices like this you want to get into. So I'm not doing a perfect job. You can see I'm just going as quickly as possible. I am getting into every crack, but by perfect I mean I'm not sitting there making sure there aren't brush strokes, because with primer that's impossible. It's actually supposed to look rough because that's how it grabs paint. It's a very sticky, nasty substance. But you can see me working my way around, getting as many cracks as I can. Then I do one more pass and I kind of feather this stuff so that there's not like a big glob sitting there. Then, when everything's kind of feathered, that's when I go to my roller, which I get paint on, but again, not too much. You can see me rolling a lot of the excess off. I always do this raised panel first for some reason. It just starts to look like it's getting painted nicely at this point, primed nicely, I guess. Then I go in here, because you don't want the brush texture. You want to get rid of that and get the roller texture, which is smoother, and it also spreads the paint out a bit thinner. Then I usually do this sort of outside groove, once again to get rid of the brush strokes. And it won't look perfect because it's primer, but it will look sort of as consistent as primer can be. And then I do the outside, just a nice flat face. You can see, well, you can hardly see, but there used to be a hole here that we puttied, sanded, and now that I'm priming over it, it is almost invisible. By the time we paint, it will be gone because we're using handles, which have 2 holes, so we need to get rid of that hole. So I've done the whole outside. Now I do this little rim like this. You can see it's not perfect, so I'll go back. Right here I brushed off some texture. So I'll fix as much as I can. I usually go back into the middle panel one last time. And that is primed. So now we're in phase 1 of painting. You can see this is a door that was primed on both sides with drying time and then turned over, and now I'm painting the front of it. So you can see that I used a brush to do the same technique with priming. I went around this edge with a brush to get it into all the grooves, and now I'm just sort of rolling the main plane of the door, and then I'm going to roll around the outside. But I just wanted to take some video to show you this step, which is exactly like priming, but there's a lot more coverage thanks to the primer. This is amazing coverage for 1 coat, so we think 2 coats are going to do it. So here are all the cabinet doors. They have 1 coat of primer on each side, 2 coats of paint on the back side, then we flip them over and have done 1 coat of paint on the front. So you can see the coverage is really great, but we're still going to get in there and do 1 more coat just to make sure things like these little crevices are nice and white looking. This is just to show anyone what oak grain might look like if you prime and paint using the materials we used. It is not overly obvious. As you can see when you look around the kitchen, it just looks like a white kitchen. I tried to pick a spot where it was the most obvious for this video. So here you can see where the light hits this cabinet. You can see a very, very small hint of grain. Just a tiny bit of texture. It's not bumpy and crazy looking. So for anyone who wanted to see it up close and personal, there it is for ya. Got putty on my spackle knife, and this is a hole. Wait a minute. Oh yes. And then I pull it back over the hole. Hold on, this is hard to do while holding a camera. Like that. I'm gonna use my foot.
You're the